All right, real quick before we jump into the draft conversations, because you're still a Detroit Lions fan, Deron Payne, would you give him that big ass deal to come play here for the Lions, or you want to draft somebody?
I mean, I would definitely think about it. I don't know how big of a deal he's gonna want to have. I know he wants to be like the highest paid interior defensive lineman, and
Oh my!
I don't know if I'm willing to match like Quinnen Williams type money for Deron Payne, especially when he's on the sidelines punching his teammates a season ago. But I mean, I would love a player like him in the middle of this defense, with Lee McNeil and stuff like that. But man, that's a tough one. I don't know if I'd be willing to make that pay because just St. Brown, you have a young player like Hutchinson. You've got a player like Jamal Williams who you're probably going to have to pay a little bit. Obviously we have to make a decision with Jared Goff, but we've got Sewell, Frank Ragnow. I mean, so many different players. Jonah Jackson, where we have to really consider where we want to, delegate this money. And I don't know if I would want to delegate it to an interior defensive lineman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
it is sexy. And the punching his teammates thing doesn't bother me.
No?
For a defensive lineman, no. He's punching his teammates. Quinnen Williams punched a coach this year. Ndamukong Suh's stepping on people.
Quinnen Williams punched a coach this year?
You never saw that?
On purpose?
They were getting in each other's face and right on the
Is
sideline.
this true, Russell? Is he?
Who punched a coach?
Quinnen Williams. He's barking in the coach's face, and he didn't stick him, but he one arm shoved him. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
No, that did happen.
Defensive linemen are supposed to be mean and angry. That's how
fair.
I want my defensive linemen.
That's
Is
fair.
mean and angry.
Yeah, I mean, I would take Quinnen Williams over Deron Payne.
I would too.
You can punch Mike, yeah. I ain't tripping over that one. Speaking of interior defensive linemen, well, I guess, so I've been doing these mock drafts, and I've been seeing, I haven't been doing them, but I've been watching them, and I've seen Myles Murphy fall to the Lions quite a few times. I don't think it's going to happen at this point. Just a little bit of tape that I'm watching this guy. He looks like an absolute freak. But my question resolving around that, because I still would want to draft him either way, but what do the Lions do with a guy like James Houston at that point if they go edge like that?
Yeah, I mean, he's still going to be your situational pass rusher. You would probably take, a Myles Murphy who's 6'5" and 275 pounds, and you would move one of those guys inside, and then you would just pretty much have speed rushing off the edge with James Houston and things like that. So I ultimately think, it's still a possibility. I think James Houston's going to be pretty good. So I don't know if it's going to be near the top of their board. I think they're still going to want a Jalen Carter to potentially fall to them. And I know it sounds crazy, and I know a lot of people write it off and are like, yeah, he's going first overall. We haven't seen a defensive tackle go first overall since 1994 when Dan Wilkinson went to the Bengals. I mean, it's possible, but it doesn't happen all the time. And I don't know what happens with these quarterbacks, but it gets really interesting between picks 2 through 5. You look at what the Raiders are doing with potentially Derek Carr and kind of dangling them out there. I really struggle with the fact that Jalen Carter's just going to be off the board automatically. He could fall. I didn't think Sewell was going to be there at 7. I didn't think Aiden Hutchinson was going to be available at 2. And all this stuff, and the last 2 drafts we've kind of got luck of the draw, got the guys that we've wanted, and I think it's very possible that the same thing could happen here. We all want Jalen Carter. I think it's very possible. But if you go edge rusher, I don't think it diminishes James Houston at all. I still think he's a situational pass rusher. You see him on 3rd down, you see him on 2nd and longs, and you just play more so like a Myles Murphy on the short yardage. He's still going to rush the passer. I would be very interested where they would value like a Tyree Wilson. I know a lot of people think Tyree Wilson's kind of a top 4, top 5 player in this draft as well. So I would wonder where Detroit values players like Wilson and Murphy and really the edge rush class. But to double down at the position, I have a hard time believing that's what they do this year.
Yeah, and if you're looking at, dude, I just got really excited when you said Jalen Carter could fall. I hope that happens. I pray to God that happens. But if it doesn't, and obviously I think that interior defensive line is their biggest need, is the guy like Brian Brise, is that something that you think is real at 6, or could you see the Lions possibly trading back? Because like you said, what's going on with Derek Carr, they're the pick after the Lions. So teams might want to jump up if they want to get a quarterback before the Raiders.
100%. I think Brian Brise is possible at 6. It's a little rich, but I think it's possible. And I don't think it's a bad pick by any means, because you're talking about a player that was the number one ranked recruit. He's 6'5", 6'6", 300 pounds, 305 pounds. He moves really well. He's coming off that torn ACL a season or 2 seasons ago, and he still played very well. He matched his totals statistically from tackles and tackles for loss and things like that to when he was a true freshman. So he's great for the community. I think he would be great for the locker room, and I think he would be great for what they're trying to build as far as culture. And you plug him in the middle, and I think it just helps with your defensive line. And when you go back to those 2011, 2012, 2013 years when we have pretty good defenses here in Detroit, a lot of it was credit to having Nick Fairley and having Ndamukong Suh and having young pass rushers and things like that. And I think that's something that Detroit's going to try to get back to, is the identity in the trenches of having some youth, speed, power, athleticism at all 4 positions or all 3 positions, depending on how many defensive linemen they have on the field. So I think Brian Breeze is definitely somebody that would be worth looking at 6. It's still pretty rich for me. If they traded back and took him, I wouldn't have a problem if they moved 2 spots or 3 spots. I know Carolina's sitting there at 8, so maybe they want to move up in front of Las Vegas and take that quarterback. I think that's possible. I don't know. I've struggled with 6. I really have. I don't know what we do when I do a mock draft, and I haven't put it out on Twitter yet. Every time I get to 6, I'm like, I don't know what I would do, because I don't honestly think I would be upset with any player they took. They all make sense.
I agree with you to the point that it all makes sense. The one guy, the 2 guys I actually have gotten to watch has been the Miles Murphy and obviously Breesy. They play on the same team. I'm with you where I think that's a little bit too rich of a pick with Breesy, because you have to factor in he's playing alongside a mammoth of a human being, Miles Murphy, a damn explosive, I love Miles Murphy, but I'm slowly falling in love with that guy. I don't think that he's going to be there. That's how good I think he is. But the Breesy thing, I'm not really sold on him yet. I don't think.
Yeah.
Just me watching him. It doesn't.
You said you like everybody there, and you like what they could do. And I know this is probably a reach, and I don't know what your thoughts are about it. But cornerback is also a big need for this team, for this defense. Would Kelly Ringo be realistic at all at number 6, or is that way too high?
For me, it's too high. I like the physicality that he plays with. I love his size at 6'2", 205. But I'm going to be honest, I think there are times that he really struggles against faster receivers. And I think in this division, where you look at what the Vikings have, and say what you want about the Packers, but short rebuild, long rebuild, they're going to turn that thing around probably pretty quick. And the Bears, there's some talent on that roster. Not much, but there's some talent. They've got the draft capital to potentially get better, especially offensively. So you bring a player like that, and if you play a lot of press man situations, or you're playing a lot of single high cover 1 because you're playing man coverage on the outside, and you've got Kirby Joseph 20 yards off the ball, you're really trusting on Kirby to show his range, which he has. But you're really hoping that Ringo doesn't get beaten. If he does, can he recover? Does he have the athleticism to recover? I think laterally he's okay. Vertically and flipping his hips, I think he struggles a little bit. So I think 6 is pretty rich for me, but I wouldn't be mad if they took a corner like a Joey Porter Jr. I think that's the kid that I'm really kind of dialing in on as being this potential top corner in the draft. And I think a lot of it has to do with the NFL bloodlines, but he's got great length for the position. I really think he is somebody that's a lot more fluid, and there's just kind of this toolbox of an arsenal for him to get better and improve. And I think there's a higher ceiling there and a lot more value and potential with Joey Porter, where I think you'd be having a lot of people upset that you took a corner at 6, again another corner in the top 10. But I think Porter Jr. is somebody that is going to move up some draft boards once he gets to talk to teams and really showcase what he's done as far as preparation and how he studies the game. And that's what put guys at the top of their position group, or really in the first round in the past. You look at Keir Elam out of Florida last year. Bills were sold on him because of the way that he studied the game of football. The same thing can happen here. So I think Porter Jr., if everything checks off, I think the Lions could be a team that really fall in love with him.
I'm with you too. I always love when I talk to guys like Russ or guys like Scott, like last year too, because I have these feelings about these players, but I'm never quite sure because I don't know I'm not a talent evaluator. It's not. I don't do that at the level that you guys do. But like when I seen Kelly Ringo too, I was kind of felt like I don't know how to opportunistic plays. I feel like more than like anything, more than like shutdown versus like a Joey Porter. Like you said, the length. That's been my guilty pleasures. Fall in love with like those athletic super freak cornerbacks, like the bigger dudes.
That's what I've said this for months now, that Jalen Carter, Joey Porter Jr. would be my beautiful 1-2 in the first. That's back when we were expecting, a top 3 pick with the Rams pick, and I thought that would make this defense a top 15 defense in the league if you get those two guys.
How hammered would we get if it's Jalen Carter at 6 and Joey Porter Jr. at 18?
Oh my God, dude! Yeah,
like Texan Darius Slade hammered.
Yeah, I would be insane. I'd be blacked out for like punching cars hammered.
Yeah, for sure.
So we just got done talking about a dream scenario. Dream scenario being Jalen Carter, Joey Porter Jr. If the Lions stay at 18, let's say, and Joey Porter Jr. and Kelly Ringo are both off of the board. They don't move up to try to grab one of those guys. What are other cornerbacks in this class that you could see being realistic possibilities for the Lions?
Well, I think Christian Gonzalez is probably the first one that is probably going to jump off the tape. Super athletic, transferred from Colorado over to Oregon. Had a really standout year as a 6'2", 200-pound corner in the Pac-12. I mean, he's got tons of experience. He was a 3-year starter at Colorado. He finishes his year starting at Oregon. He has really got good foot quickness, explosive hips, and I think he is somebody that with his length is probably going to be – I could see him being kind of like a boundary corner, which is what Sauce Gardner is. Now, he's not as talented as Sauce by any means, but I like hip fluidity when I watch corners. I like length. I like just overall athleticism. I think he's got that. I think he's instinctive. And I think he is somebody that's really going to stand out through this draft process, whether he's going, top 15 or top 25, somewhere between that 15 and 25 range. I think he'd be a great value at 18. And I think he is somebody that we certainly need. And I think really corner is a position of need. And I think a lot of people don't want to admit it because of some of the resources that we've spent there. We're hoping that guys like Mike Hughes get a contract extension and stick around, and Jerry Jacobs continues to ball out. We were hoping that Jeff Okudah, finished the season strong, but it kind of was murky there, so we'll see how that plays out. So I think there's going to be a lot of situations where they could go get a guy in free agency, but as we mentioned with the 18th pick, I think Gonzalez is a great one. I think Cam Smith from South Carolina is going to be another one, but really Devin Witherspoon from Illinois is another player. Some people believe he might be the best corner in the draft at 6 foot 180. You talk about hip fluidity, you talk about explosiveness, you talk about aggressiveness. He's one of the most aggressive corners in this draft. He's going to be very dominant in man coverage, and I think he is somebody that is probably going to be valued more so on the outside than in that nickel role. He played up near the box at times, but I do wonder, our team's going to value him more in the box as far as playing in the slot and things like that. So I just don't know where he translates to the next level. I like him more as maybe of a second round option. And I will throw one more name at you just because, I'm crazy like that. But this is Julius Brents from Kansas State. This is my guy. I think he is somebody that is flown under the radar for whatever reason it is. Not enough people talk about him. He's going to go down to the Senior Bowl, probably going to get this, third round grade when you talk to the, the scouts and the people in the media. But he's 6'4", 210 pounds, played at Iowa, transferred.
Wow.
He is, dude, when you think length, you think footwork, you think just athleticism and quickness. He's a stud, man, and he stood out down the stretch there for Kansas State when they played TCU. Even in their bowl game, he really stood out. So he's a stud. I think he is somebody that's sneaky good and potentially a sneaky first rounder.
Hell yeah. I love that hat, by the way.
Thanks, man. Draft good players.
That's cool hat.
I do like that. That's the purpose of the draft.
Yeah, that's what it's
People
all about.
People always bitch about position value. You just want a good player at the end of the day. That's what you're hoping for. I do want to ask, because there's a couple guys in the Woodward Sports chat, want to ask you this too. Oak specifically, if Brees is a little bit too rich for Detroit Lions blood at 6, who's there at 18, or who do you believe would be there at 18, and possibly even in the second round as options for the interior?
As far as interior defensive linemen go?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as I think about like what the Lions want as far as who's going to play opposite of McNeil, right? McNeil's more of that, one technique, that 2 probably Brandon Dorland from Oregon. He would be somebody that really stands out for me. Maisie Smith from Michigan, I still really like. I know, there's some off the field stuff there.
He's shooting up draft boards.
Yeah, I think. Well,
I like him a lot.
Shooting up. Is that a gun joke? Because of the but yeah, I mean, you think of athleticism. He's super powerful. He's got a great push-pull move. He's got really good length. I mean, I don't think the interior defensive line class is super deep. I mean, I think there's some good players there, but I don't think it's as deep as other drafts, and maybe I'm just evaluating it wrong. Gervin Dexter from Florida is another name. I mean, he's super massive frame, but I think they're going to really value more of like an athlete there, somebody that's very versatile, that can kind of play in a variety of spots. And I think Dorland and stuff like that are players that really stand out for me. So I think that you look at those two names. I don't know if there would be another guy there at 18. I think, once you get past Breesy and Jalen Carter, I think that it kind of drops off quite a bit. So I think you would really have to look at it in the second and third round, and maybe there's a free agent out there that they take on a cheap 1 or 2 year deal that they hope kind of catches on and just continues to contribute on their defensive line.
For sure. And I don't want to go full
it out with bugs.
Asking Brad Holmes of you of guys like Malcolm Rodriguez or James Houston, which I know you would know because you're a sicko, but like who could be the Amon-Ra St. Brown of this draft? Like, who could be someone in those later mid rounds that actually stands out and actually becomes a legitimate player and a legitimate contributor?
Well, you've mentioned wide receiver, and it's funny you mentioned, I don't want to say, St. Brown, who's not that type of player, but I will say Charlie Jones from Purdue. He's a draftable player, and he's 6 foot 188. He's been all over the map. I mean, he went to Iowa, went to Buffalo. He's been all over the place as far as colleges, but he really caught on with Purdue in that vertical passing game. And not saying Detroit's a good fit for him, because it could be, but he's going to have to be in more of a spread offense, and he's able to align in the slot. And he's going to be able to run 5-6 yard stick routes, or he's going to be able to run 10 to 12 yard curl routes. He's going to be able to run dig routes, but he is efficient as a short and intermediate route receiver, and he's got this toughness about him. And I think he's going to be, anywhere between that 4th, 5th, 6th round. Currently, he gets to go to the Senior Bowl. Maybe he shoots up draft boards there, but I think he is somebody that could really catch on with the team. You think of, kind of that classic slot receiver from the New England Patriot days. Could it be New England if Jacoby Myers isn't brought there? We'll see. And then another one, Nathaniel Dell from Houston. A lot of people love him. He's 5'10", 155, very as far as size, very, underwhelming there, but he's quick and he plays much bigger than he's listed at. So I do wonder where teams are going to value him, but we've seen this in years past, second, third round receivers where they get all the hype and then you see them in the NFL and it doesn't match up for them. We've seen it with guys like Tywan Taylor. We're seeing it, currently with like Tutu Atwell.
Jalen Reagor.
We'll see what happens with Sky Moore and some of these guys that get all this buzz, and then, they're small school guys. But I think that, Nathaniel Dell can figure it out. But if I had to really bet on it, I think Charlie Jones just is going to be one of those guys that's going to go in, put in the work, first guy in, last guy to leave, and he screams, 7-8 year pro in the NFL.
Oh yeah.